When I got the message that Thursday night, my heart stopped for a second. It was Emily, my daughter. After more than a year of absolute silence, "Mom? Can we get dinner on Tuesday? I miss you." I read those words over and over, my hands trembling, unable to believe it. How could one little text message light up all the darkness that had settled into my life since she decided I no longer deserved her love? But when I got to her house, something unexpected happened. But before we continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Elizabeth. I'm 58 years old. And exactly 1 year ago, my only daughter decided to cut me out of her life. There was no big fight. No definitive moment I can point to as the beginning of the end. It was a gradual silent pulling away, until one day the calls stopped being answered and the texts were left unread. The pain of losing a child who is still alive is something I don't know how to explain. It's as if a part of you is still breathing and smiling somewhere else but no longer recognizes you. I spent nights trying to understand what I did wrong, searching my memories for the exact moment I lost her affection. Was it after her husband Julian came into our lives? Was it when I questioned some financial decisions they were making? Or maybe it was that Sunday brunch in Chicago when I mentioned I thought she was losing too much weight, looking sick, and Julian answered for her that I should mind my own health. Now, with the message lighting up my phone screen, I felt like someone lost in the desert who suddenly spotted water, desperate, thirsty, not questioning if it might be a mirage. The days until Tuesday dragged on like never before. I changed my clothes 5 times before leaving. I put on the green dress she had given me. For the last birthday we were still close. I put on makeup, trying to hide the marks that loneliness had left on my face. I got in the car and drove to the gated community where they lived, the house I helped them buy when I was still welcome. I parked in front of the gate at 7:45 the evening, 15 minutes before the agreed-upon time. I didn't want to be late and give her any reason to regret the invitation. The front yard was different, more subdued with fewer flowers. I remembered when we planted the blue hydrangeas together, which were now gone. I took a deep breath, fixed my hair in the rearview mirror, and opened the car door. That's when something strange happened. As I was walking to the door, I saw Maria, the housekeeper, who had worked for Emily for years, running in my direction. Her face was tight with an expression that mixed fear and urgency. She looked back several times, as if checking she wasn't being watched before getting close to my car. "Miss Elizabeth," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't go in there. Please leave as quickly as possible." I was frozen, not understanding. "What's going on?" "Maria, is Emily okay? It's not about her," Maria replied, her eyes wide. "It's about you. Please trust me. It's not safe." Before I could ask more questions, she glanced toward the house again and backed away. "I need to get back before they notice. Go, Miss Elizabeth. Go." And with that, she ran back to the house, leaving me frozen on the sidewalk, my heart beating so loud I could hear it in my ears. What was happening? Why did Maria seem so terrified? And why had my daughter, who hadn't spoken to me in over a year, suddenly invited me to dinner? I went back to the car as if in a trance. My legs moved automatically while my mind tried to process the warning. I sat down, locked the doors, and started the engine. But I didn't drive off. Something inside me, maybe the same instinct that helped me survive an abusive marriage for 15 years before I finally found the courage to divorce, told me to stay and watch. From the driver's seat, I had a direct view of the dining room through the windows. The curtains were open as if they were expecting me to look. For a few minutes, the house remained quiet, the lights dim as if no one was home. And then, suddenly, everything lit up. On a biwan. The lights came on, as if someone had been waiting for me to leave to continue with their plans. Two people I had never seen before appeared in the dining room. A man in a dark suit, and a woman holding a folder. After them, Julian walked in, talking on his phone, gesturing as if giving important instructions. And finally, Emily appeared, formally dressed, with a serious expression I had never seen before. This clearly wasn't a mother-daughter dinner. It was a meeting carefully planned. As I watched, Maria appeared briefly in the window. Our eyes met for a second, and she gave a subtle shake of her head. That small gesture told me everything I needed to know. Leave. But I couldn't. I needed to understand what was happening. I turned off the car's headlights and kept watching. Julian walked over to the table, picked up some papers, and handed them to Emily. She looked at them, signed something, and smiled. A cold smile I didn't recognize as my daughter's. At that moment, I felt a knot in my stomach. It wasn't just worry or confusion. It was fear. A primitive, visceral fear that told me this house where I was once happy with my daughter now represented some kind of danger. And the most painful part, my own daughter seemed to be at the center of it all. 15 minutes passed as I sat paralyzed, watching this strange scene unfold. Julian left the room and came back with more papers. Emily checked something on a tablet screen. The two strangers were still there talking to each other. It looked like a business meeting, not a family dinner. And then Julian looked at his watch, and then at the window directly toward my car. I instinctively ducked, my heart racing. When I looked up again, the curtains were closed. The house that was once the place I rocked my daughter to sleep now transformed into a threatening mystery before me. I started the car and drove away. But I didn't go home. I couldn't. I parked at a gas station a few miles away on the outskirts of Denver and tried to organize my thoughts. What kind of trap was this? Why would Emily call me for a dinner that clearly didn't exist? And most importantly, what did Maria know that made her so scared? I took out my phone and looked at Emily's message again. The words seemed different now. Just the two of us. Maybe it wasn't an invitation to reconnect, but to something much darker. Was the woman I raised, who I loved unconditionally, plotting something against me? The idea was so painful that tears started rolling down my face before I even realized it. I went to the gas station restroom to wash my face. In the mirror, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Graying hair, deep, dark circles, a frightened look. Was this me now? Is this what the pain of losing my daughter had turned me into? I leaned on the sink and took a deep breath. I couldn't fall apart. I needed to find out what was going on. Back in the car, I realized I had a missed call. It was from an unknown number. Seconds later, the phone vibrated with a message. Miss Elizabeth. It's me. Maria. We need to talk tomorrow, at noon at the coffee shop in the main bus terminal. It's important. Don't tell anyone. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's face signing those papers, Julian looking at his watch. The look of terror in Maria's eyes. What were they planning? And why would my own daughter be involved in something against me? When the sun began to rise, I was still awake, sitting on the balcony of my small apartment, looking out at the city of Austin as it woke up. The people in the streets seemed so normal, so oblivious to the turmoil happening in my life. What would it be like to wake up without the weight of knowing that the person you love most in the world might want to hurt you? As the clock ticked toward noon, a determination grew inside me. I would go to that meeting with Maria and find out the truth, no matter how painful. Because the uncertainty, I realized, was even more unbearable than any truth. The bus terminal was busy as always. People rushing to catch their buses, families saying goodbye, teenagers with huge backpacks waiting for their rides. I felt out of place there. A middle-aged woman alone, looking for answers to questions I didn't even know how to form. The coffee shop was in a secluded corner, a small place with formica tables and plastic chairs. I chose a table where I could see the entrance and ordered a coffee I knew I wouldn't be able to drink. My stomach was in knots. A 12:10. Maria walked in. She was dressed simply, a dark jacket and a scarf partially covering her face. Her eyes darted around nervously, scanning every corner of the place before heading to my table. "Miss Elizabeth," she whispered, sitting down quickly. "Thank you for coming." "Maria? For God's sake, tell me what's going on," I pleaded, holding her trembling hands across the table. "Why did you stop me from going in yesterday? What is Emily planning?" She glanced around as if afraid of being watched and lowered her voice even more. "It's not just Emily, Miss Elizabeth. It's Julian. He's controlling everything." A chill ran down my spine. From the beginning, I never fully trusted Julian. There was something about him, a calculating coldness behind the charming smile. But Emily was so in love. She never wanted to hear my concerns. "Controls how I asked." Maria took a deep breath. "For months, I've seen strange things happening in that house. Mr. Julian, he isolates Emily. First, it was her friends, then her family. You were the last one to be pushed away. But it was Emily who stopped talking to me," I argued, confused. "No, Miss Elizabeth. It was him who convinced her that you were trying to control her life, that you didn't respect her choices. He twists everything. He makes Emily believe everyone is against her, that only he protects her." Maria paused, her eyes wet. "She's losing weight because he even controls what she eats. He says she needs to stay in shape, that nobody likes fat women." I felt nauseous. The pieces were starting to fit. The gradual distance, the changes in Emily's behavior, the way she started repeating phrases that sounded rehearsed. "And the dinner yesterday? Why invite me?" Maria lowered her voice even more. "I heard a conversation between them. Mr. Julian said they needed your signature on some documents. Something about the house you helped buy, and some stocks that Emily's dad left her. Things you still have some control over. The condo I helped Emily finance when she got married was still partially in my name, and the stocks my ex-husband, Emily's father, left when he passed away. I was the administrator until she turned 35, which would be in just a few months. Were they going to make me sign papers to transfer everything to them?" "Not just that." Maria hesitated, her eyes fixed on mine. "I heard Mr. Julian talking to a man on the phone. He said, after Tuesday, everything will be ours, and no one will question it. The old woman won't be in the way anymore." My blood ran cold. The old woman. Is that how Julian referred to me when he thought no one was listening? The idea that my son-in-law and my own daughter were conspiring to take my assets was devastating. But there was something else in Maria's words. Something she wasn't saying. "There's more, isn't there?" "Maria." She nodded slowly, a tear rolling down her face. "Miss Elizabeth, I think they wanted to hurt you. I heard Julian talking about an accident. That it would be easy to make it look like you slipped on the stairs after drinking wine at dinner." The coffee shop started to spin around me. My own daughter contemplating my death. No, it couldn't be. That was too insane. Emily would never agree to that. I said more to myself than to Maria. Emily isn't the same anymore. Miss Elizabeth. He manipulates her. She does everything he says. It's like she's hypnotized. I sat in silence trying to process it all. Part of me wanted to deny it, to say it was impossible, but another part knew Maria had no reason to make up something so horrible. "Why are you telling me this? Maria, why risk yourself like this?" Her eyes met mine, filled with determination. "Because Emily was a good girl before him. I watched her grow up. Remember, I worked for you all since she was 12. Her voice broke. "And because my sister died at the hands of a man like Mr. Julian, a man who controlled everything, who isolated her from everyone, who made her believe the world was a terrible place, and only he could protect her. I felt a lump in my throat. Maria was risking her job, maybe even her safety, to warn me. Do you have proof of anything? Anything that can help us? She nodded and took a small recorder from her purse. I recorded some conversations and took pictures of documents I found in his office. They're preparing everything for after Tuesday. Wills. Transfers. Everything. I took the recorder with shaky hands. Maria. Do you realize this is criminal? We need to go to the police. No. She exclaimed. Scared. Not yet. Mister. Julian has friends on the force. He's always bragging about how easy it is to make things disappear when you know the right people. Then what do we do? Maria leaned forward. First, you need to protect yourself. You can't go back to your apartment. They know where you live. They know your routine. We need you to stay somewhere safe while we figure out more. And Emily, we can't just leave her with him. I'll keep an eye on her. Miss Elizabeth, if he tries anything. She didn't finish the sentence, but I saw the worry in her eyes. For now, the important thing is to keep you safe. I looked out the coffee shop window at the people passing by, oblivious to the terror I was living. How could I just disappear, abandon my life, my home, my job at the small bookstore I managed in Boulder? And how could I leave Emily behind? Even if she was involved in something so terrible against me. I have a cousin who lives out in the country, Maria said. Near Santa Fe. We can say you went to visit her. No one will look for you there. The idea of running, of hiding, was almost as terrifying as the revelations I had just heard. What if I try to talk to Emily alone? Without Julian? Maybe she... Miss Elizabeth. Maria interrupted, her voice firm. You don't understand. She won't choose you. Not right now. He has complete control over her. Her words hit me like a punch. The truth I didn't want to face. I had already lost my daughter. Not when she stopped talking to me a year ago, but long before. When that man entered our lives and began to weave his web of manipulation. I'll go to your cousin's house. I finally decided. But not to hide. To think. To plan how we're going to save Emily. Maria nodded, visibly relieved. That's for the best. Miss Elizabeth. I'll keep watch here and keep you informed. We're going to get Emily out of this. When we left the coffee shop, the world seemed different. More threatening. The noon sun no longer felt warm. And the faces of the people around me seemed like masks hiding unknown intentions. I was about to leave behind everything I knew, fleeing from a danger that came from the person I loved most in the world. I looked at Maria one last time before we parted. Take care of yourself, and watch over my daughter. Always. Miss Elizabeth. I walked to my car, feeling the weight of the recorder in my jacket pocket. That small object held the truth that could destroy my family forever. But it could also be the key to saving my daughter from a monster who was consuming her from the inside. Maria's cousin's house was in a small town, about 3 hours from the city near Santa Fe. It was a simple place with dirt roads and people who still left their doors unlocked at night. Beatrice, a woman in her 70s, welcomed me as if we were old friends, asking few questions, when Maria vaguely explained that I needed a place to stay for a few weeks. Any friend of Maria's is a friend of mine, she said, showing me the back room of the house with an iron bed and floral curtains that reminded me of my grandmother's house. Stay as long as you need. That first night, sitting on the porch under a starry sky you never saw in the city, I tried to put my thoughts in order. I listened to the recordings Maria had given me and examined the photographs of the documents. Each piece of evidence was more disturbing than the last. Julian had meticulously created a scheme to take over not only the stocks that belonged to Emily, but also properties that were in my name. There was a forged will with my supposed signature, leaving everything to Emily in the event of my death. And other documents, transfers, powers of attorney, all with forgeries of my signature. Just waiting for dates to be filed. But the most terrifying part was hearing my own daughter's voice on those recordings. Yes. A voice I barely recognized, mechanically agreeing with Julian, repeating rehearsed phrases about how I always controlled her, how I never supported her, and how I deserved to be alone. It was like hearing his words coming out of her mouth as if he were a ventriloquist and she his puppet. The next morning, I picked up my phone to call Benjamin, my lawyer and lifelong friend. But I hesitated. What if Julian was monitoring my calls? What if he found out where I was? I decided to be more cautious. I used the landline at Beatrice's house to call from a number Julian wouldn't know. Elizabeth, Benjamin answered. Surprised. Where are you? I've called your cell several times. I needed to get out of town for a few days. I answered vaguely. Benjamin, I need your help. But it has to be discreet. I explained the situation as concisely as possible without going into detail over the phone. Benjamin listened in silence, occasionally asking pointed questions. This is serious. Elizabeth, he said finally. If you have proof of what you're saying, we need to go to the police immediately. Not yet, I replied, remembering Maria's warning. Julian has contacts. We need to be strategic. So what do you suggest? I need more concrete evidence. Something that can't be ignored or covered up. Benjamin was silent for a few seconds. I have a friend with the feds. Someone outside the local circle. I can talk to him without mentioning names yet. Do that. I agreed. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me. Go to my apartment and look for a blue folder in the back of my closet. There are important documents in there. Is your spare key still in the same place? Yes. With Mrs. Davis in 308. In the following days, I settled into a routine at Beatrice's house. During the day, I helped with chores to keep my mind busy. At night, I went over the evidence, taking notes, connecting the dots. Maria sent me short messages from a prepaid phone, updating me on the situation at the house. Julian is nervous. Asking about you. Emily seems confused. I heard an argument. He's making strange calls. He mentions Plan B. Each message increased my anxiety. What was this Plan B? And how was Emily reacting to my disappearance? Part of me wanted to run back, confront them, demand explanations. But another part knew that would be suicide. If they were really planning to kill me, showing up without a plan would only speed up the process. On the fourth day, Benjamin called me. I managed to talk to my contact at the feds. He's interested in the case, but he needs more details. And Elizabeth, I went to your apartment. The tone of his voice alarmed me. What happened? Someone was there. The place was tossed. The blue folder. I couldn't find it. My blood ran cold. The folder contained original documents for the properties, the stocks, legitimate wills. It was my insurance in case anything happened to me. They're one step ahead of us, I murmured. There's more. Benjamin continued. There's an investigation into you. What? What kind of investigation? It seems someone reported irregularities at the bookstore. Tax evasion. Money laundering. It's completely absurd. But it's in motion. Julian's strategy was becoming clear. If I showed up, it would be to face criminal charges. A public scandal that would make it easier to take everything I had built. And Emily. Did you manage to talk to her? Benjamin Sahil. I tried. She's not answering my calls. I went to her house and the security guard wouldn't let me in. Said she wasn't receiving visitors. The situation was getting worse faster than I imagined. They weren't just trying to erase my financial existence, but my reputation as well. It was a perfect trap. If I stayed hidden, I'd lose everything. If I showed up, I'd be arrested. We need to act faster. I decided. Your contact with the feds. Can he start an investigation without alerting the local police? Possibly. But he'd need concrete proof. I have recordings. Photographs of documents. Is that enough to start? Maybe. I'll check. When I hung up, I realized Beatrice was at the kitchen door, watching me with concern. Serious problems. Aren't they? She asked. Sitting at the table with me, I nodded. Not going into detail, she took my hands in hers, wrinkled by time and work. You know, dear, when I was young, my husband used to hit me every day for anything. I thought I deserved it. That's just how things were. Until one day, he hit our son. That's when I realized it wasn't about me. It was about him. About the power he wanted to have over us. I looked at her, surprised by the sudden confession. What I'm saying, she continued, is that sometimes we need to see someone we love get hurt to understand that we're being hurt too. Your daughter is in danger. Isn't she? Yes, I admitted. But she doesn't see it because he won't let her see. That's how they work. They isolate. They control. They make the person doubt their own judgment. And by the time you finally wake up, it's already too late. How did you escape? Beatrice's face lit up with a sad smile. I didn't escape. He died. Had a heart attack during one of his fits of rage. God has a peculiar sense of humor. Doesn't he? She stood up, adjusting her apron. But you can still save your daughter and yourself. When she left, I stayed thinking about her words. Maybe Beatrice was right. Maybe the problem had never been between Emily and me. It was Julian who had created this divide, feeding it with lies and manipulation. And if my daughter was repeating those horrible phrases about me, it wasn't because she believed them, but because he had programmed her to say them. That night, I got a message from Maria that changed everything. He's planning to take her. I heard him talking about a house overseas. He says, the two of you will never see each other again. Take her. Where? Why? The question swirled in my mind. If Julian managed to get Emily out of the country, I really might never see her again. And if he had already managed to transform her so much in just 2 years, what would he do when he had her completely isolated, with no one to question him? I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't trust the legal system to act in time. My daughter was in immediate danger. Even if she didn't realize it, I needed to get her out of Julian's grasp before it was too late. I grabbed my phone and called Benjamin. Change of plans, I said as soon as he answered. We're not waiting for the formal investigation. We need to act now. What do you have in mind? An extraction, I replied, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. We're going to get my daughter out of that house. And you're going to help me. The next 2 days were spent developing a plan that under normal circumstances I would consider insane, but nothing had been normal for a long time. Benjamin, initially reluctant, ended up agreeing that we couldn't wait for the slow legal process. Especially with Julian's threat of taking Emily out of the country. You understand this could go wrong in so many ways. Right, he warned me. During one of our calls on the prepaid phone, Beatrice had lent me. I understand, I replied. But standing by while my daughter disappears forever would be much worse. Benjamin had contacts. One of them was Marcus, an ex-cop who now worked as a private investigator in Detroit. Another was Sarah, a psychologist specializing in victims of abusive relationships. They both agreed to help. More out of friendship for Benjamin than belief in my story. But that didn't matter. What I needed were competent people, not conviction. The plan was relatively simple. We needed to create a situation where Emily was alone without Julian for long enough for us to talk to her. Maria would be crucial for this. She would let us know when Julian left the house, preferably for several hours. And then we would act. And what if she doesn't want to go with you? Marcus asked during our meeting, at a small diner on the highway halfway between Austin and the town where I was hiding. She doesn't need to want to, Sarah explained. In cases of severe psychological manipulation, the victim rarely recognizes their situation. Our mission is to create an interruption in the control, to allow her to think for herself. Even if just for a few hours. And if he comes back while we're there, I questioned, feeling a chill down my spine, just thinking about it. I'll be prepared, Marcus replied, not elaborating. But his tone made me believe he knew how to handle men like Julian. The opportunity came 3 days later. Maria sent me a message at 90 the morning. He's going to Miami today. Business meeting. Flight at 1:00. He's not back until tonight. She'll be home alone. My heart pounded. It was now or never. I met Benjamin, Marcus, and Sarah at the agreed-upon spot. A gas station 10 minutes from Emily's house. Benjamin looked nervous, constantly checking his watch. Marcus was calm, almost indifferent, as if we were just there for a casual coffee. Sarah reviewed her notes, likely preparing her psychological approach. Remember, she said, Emily will probably resist. She might yell, cry, accuse us of being against her. That's normal. The important thing is to stay calm and project safety. At 3:00 sharp, we got confirmation from Maria. Julian had left and the plane had already taken off. It was our signal. The drive to Emily's house was made in tense silence. Everyone in the car seemed lost in their own thoughts. I was trying to imagine what it would be like to see my daughter again after so long, and under such strange circumstances. We reached the gated community. Marcus, wearing a delivery uniform and carrying a fake package, managed to get the security guard to open the gate without question. Once inside, we drove slowly to the house. Maria was waiting for us in the backyard, out of sight of the neighbors. She's in the living room, she reported, visibly nervous, watching TV. She's not doing well. Barely left her room in the last few days. Any sign of Julian? Marcus asked. None. He called half an hour ago to check if she was home. It's what he always does. Calls every hour when he's away. Then we have about 30 minutes before the next call. Benjamin calculated. We need to be quick. We went in through the back door, which Maria had left unlocked. The house was quiet, except for the low sound of the television coming from the living room. I walked to the front, my heart beating so hard I thought it could be heard. And then, after more than a year, I saw my daughter. Emily was sitting on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket despite the heat of the day. She was so thin, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair, once long and vibrant, was lifeless, pulled back in a messy bun. Deep dark circles marked her pale face. My beautiful daughter, always so full of life, looked like a ghost of herself. She didn't notice our presence at first. Absorbed in some TV show, she didn't even seem to be really watching. When she finally saw me, her eyes flew open in shock. Mom? She whispered, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Hi, honey, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the tears threatening to fall. She jumped up abruptly, the blanket falling away. She was wearing baggy pajamas that accentuated her alarming thinness even more. What are you doing here? How did you get in? I immediately sensed the fear in her voice. It wasn't just surprise. It was panic. We need to talk, Emily, I said, taking a step toward her. I'm worried about you. She backed away, looking nervously at the strangers with me. You can't be here. Julian will be back soon. You have to leave. Your husband is in Miami, Marcus informed her calmly. He won't be back until tonight. The panic in Emily's eyes intensified. How do you know that? Are you spying on me? I'm calling the police, She frantically looked for her phone. But Maria had already removed it from the room, just as we planned. Sarah stepped forward, her voice soft and controlled. Emily. My name is Sarah. I'm a psychologist. And I'm here to help. We're not here to hurt you. We just want to talk. I don't need help. Emily replied automatically, as if repeating something she'd heard many times. I'm perfectly fine. You're the ones with the problem. Always interfering in my life. The words hit me like daggers, but Sarah had prepared me for this. They were Julian's words, not Emily's. Honey. I tried again. You invited me to dinner. Remember, last Tuesday. You sent me a message. Emily looked confused for a moment. I didn't send anything. Yes. You did. I insisted, showing her the message on my phone. She stared at the screen. The confusion even more evident. That's my number. But I didn't write that. It was Julian. Wasn't it? I asked gently. He took your phone and sent that message pretending to be you. Emily opened her mouth to deny it, but then closed it again, as if something was clicking in her mind. He said it would be good for us to reconcile. That he sensed I was sad about not talking to you anymore. But later he said you canceled. That you didn't want to see me. I was there. Emily. At the agreed-upon time. But Maria stopped me from coming in, because she heard Julian planning something against me. Emily looked at Maria, who nodded silently. It's true. Child. I heard him talking about making it look like an accident. About how you would inherit everything after your mom fell down the stairs. No, Emily murmured, shaking her head. He wouldn't do that. He loves me. He protects me. Protect you from what? Emily Sarah asked, her voice still calm. From the world, from the people who love you. Look at yourself. Are you happy? Are you healthy? Or are you scared all the time? Emily started to cry, her shoulders shaking under the weight of the questions. I wanted to run to her. As who here? Tell her everything would be okay. But Sarah had been clear. We needed to maintain emotional distance in this first moment. Emily needed to process. He says, you don't understand me. She sobbed. That you want to control me. That only he knows what's best for me. And do you believe that? I asked softly. I don't know what to believe anymore, she admitted, suddenly looking exhausted. I'm so tired. It was in that moment I realized how much damage my daughter had sustained. Not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. Julian had systematically destroyed her confidence, her sense of reality, and her connection to the world. And I had let it happen. Staying away, when I should have fought harder. Emily. Sarah said. You don't have to decide anything right now. We're just asking you to come with us for a few hours. To talk in a neutral place without Julian's influence. He'll be furious if I leave, she murmured, the fear obvious in her voice. Does he control where you go? Marcus asked, his tone professional, but his eyes revealing indignation. Emily hesitated, as if realizing for the first time how absurd the situation was. He says it's for my safety. That there are people who want to hurt us. People like your mother, Benjamin questioned. Speaking for the first time, Emily looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in a long time. Doubt. Not about me, but about the lies she had believed. He said you wanted to keep me away from him because you were jealous. Because I had a perfect marriage, and you failed at yours. I took a deep breath, feeling the sting of those words, but understanding they weren't really hers. Emily, if your father and I separated because he cheated on me, you know that. And I have never, ever wanted anything but your happiness. If Julian truly made you happy, I would be the first to support you. But he doesn't make you happy, does he? Sarah continued, seizing the moment of vulnerability. You're more isolated, thinner, and more scared every day. Emily's tears were flowing freely now. He says I'm fat. That no one will want me if I don't take care of myself. That I should be grateful he accepts me like this. My heart broke hearing that. My beautiful daughter, always so self-assured, reduced to doubting even her appearance. Emily, Maria said, approaching cautiously. Mr. Julian is not who you think he is. He's manipulating you. Just like he manipulated your mother's documents. What documents? Emily asked. Confused, Benjamin took some copies of the forgeries Maria had photographed from his briefcase. These. Your signature and your mother's forged. Part of a plan to take control of the properties. The stocks. Everything. Emily examined the papers. Her confusion, giving way to shock. This is my signature. But I never signed these documents. And this is my signature, I added. On documents I've never seen. Suddenly, the landline in the house rang, making us all jump. The clock on the wall read 1:30 inches the afternoon. The time for Julian's check-in call. It's him, Emily whispered. The panic returning. If I don't answer. Answer it, Sarah instructed. Act normally. Say everything is fine. Emily hesitated, looking at all of us. Clearly torn. Finally, with trembling hands, she picked up the phone. Hi, love, she said, trying to sound casual. But her voice was tight. Yes. I'm home. No. Nothing different. Yes. I'm following the meal plan. No. No visitors. She paused, looking at us with growing alarm. No. I'm not hiding anything. Yes. I'm alone. Only Maria is here. Another longer pause. Julian. I'm not lying. Please don't talk like that. No. I'm not crying. The desperation in her voice was palpable. Julian clearly sensed something was wrong. Even over the phone. We need to go now, Marcus muttered. Emily, I whispered. Come with us. Please. She looked at me. The phone still at her ear. Silent tears rolling down her face. Then, in a moment of clarity that gave me hope, she spoke into the phone. Julian, I have to go. I'm not feeling well. And she hung up, ignoring the immediate ringing that followed. He's going to call the security guard, she said quickly, grabbing a purse. We have to go before he locks the gates. There was no time to celebrate this small victory. We left quickly through the back. Exactly as we came in. Marcus went to get the car while we waited in the yard. Tense. Listening for any movement. He's going to find me, Emily murmured, hugging herself. He always finds me. Not this time. I promised, finally allowing myself to touch her arm. This time, I'm here. And I'm not going to let him hurt you again. When the car arrived, we got in quickly. Marcus drove fast, but not so fast as to draw attention. In the rearview mirror, I saw the community's security guard coming out of his booth, looking around, probably looking for Emily at Julian's request. We were on the highway when Maria's phone rang. She answered, her face pale. Mr. Julian. No. I don't know where she is. I went out to do the shopping. She hung up, trembling. He's furious. He's catching the first flight back. How much time do we have? Benjamin asked. Tfu. Maybe 3 hours. If he gets a flight immediately. It wasn't much time. But it would have to be enough. I looked at Emily sitting next to me, looking both relieved and terrified. She had taken the first step, The hardest one. But the battle was just beginning. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice small. "To a safe place," I replied, holding her hand. "A place where he can't reach you." And as the car continued down the highway, taking us far away from that house of horrors, I felt a mix of fear and determination. Julian would come after us with all his rage and resources, but I wouldn't back down. Not this time. My daughter needed me. And I would be there for her, no matter the cost. The safe place was a small farmhouse belonging to Marcus's family about 60 miles from the city. It was isolated enough to give us privacy, but close enough to civilization not to be completely vulnerable. The main house was simple, with 3 bedrooms, a large living room, and a rustic kitchen. Emily remained silent for most of the trip. Occasionally, she'd pick up the phone Maria had given back to her before we left and stare at the screen. But she didn't answer Julian's constant calls. Every time the phone rang, she flinched, as if expecting a physical blow. "We can turn it off," Sarah suggested gently. "You don't need to hear his voice right now." Emily hesitated, but ended up handing the device to Sarah, who turned it off and put it in her purse. When we arrived at the farmhouse, it was already getting dark. The sky had that purple color that precedes total darkness, and the first stars were beginning to appear. "Let's go inside," Marcus said, parking the car near the porch. Nobody followed us, but it's better not to stay exposed. The house was clean, but with that distinct smell of places that stay closed for a long time. Marcus turned on the lights and quickly checked the rooms, ensuring we were truly alone. Benjamin went to the kitchen to make coffee, while Sarah led Emily to the living room sofa, speaking to her in a low voice. Likely using techniques to calm her, I stood in the middle of the living room watching my daughter. I'm still trying to process that she was really here, that we had managed to get her out of that house. It seemed unreal, like a dream I was afraid of waking up from. "You two need to talk," Sarah said, getting up. "I'll go help Benjamin in the kitchen." I sat down next to Emily, keeping a respectful distance. She was hunched over, as if trying to take up as little space as possible. Her thin, pale hands twisted nervously in her lap. "How are you feeling?" I asked, knowing it was a stupid question, but not knowing where else to start. She shrugged, a gesture that reminded me so much of the teenager she once was. Confused. Scared. "I don't know what I'm doing here." "You're here because part of you knows something is wrong," I replied softly, "even if it's hard to admit." Emily looked up at me and I saw a mixture of anger, fear, and confusion in her eyes. "You hate Julian. You've always hated him from the beginning." "No, Emily. I distrusted him when I realized how he was changing you, how he was cutting you off from everyone who loved you." "He protects me," she answered automatically, but her voice lacked conviction. "From what?" "Honey, from whom? From your mother, who only wants to see you happy, from your friends you haven't seen in over a year, from your life that you gave up for him." She didn't answer, but I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Emily, look at yourself," I continued, trying not to sound accusatory. "You're so thin. I barely recognized you. You're terrified of a phone call from your own husband. You live isolated with no friends, no family. Is that protection? Or is it a prison?" A tear escaped and slid down her cheek. He says it's for my own good. That I was naive. That people wanted to take advantage of me." "And who took advantage of you?" "Honey, your friends who called you every day, until you stopped answering me. Who called you for months, with no reply. Or the man who controls what you eat, where you go, and who you talk to." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing silently. I wanted to hug her, but I knew I needed to let her process her own emotions. Emily needed to reach her own conclusions. When was the last time you felt truly happy? I asked after a moment. She lifted her face. Thoughtful. I don't know. Before. I guess. Before everything got so complicated. Before he started isolating you. Before he made you doubt yourself and everyone around you. Emily nodded slowly, as if admitting something to herself for the first time. It was different at the beginning. He was attentive. Affectionate. He made me feel special. That's how they work, said Benjamin, returning to the living room with a tray of coffee. They start by making you feel like the most important person in the world. Then, slowly, they chip away at you. Isolate you, until you depend on them completely. Emily looked at him curiously. How do you know that? Benjamin placed the tray on the table and sat in the armchair across from us. My sister went through something similar. It took us years to realize what was happening. By the time we finally got her out of that situation, she was barely the person we knew. And how is she now? Emily asked. A spark of hope in her eyes. Better. Not completely recovered. I doubt anyone ever fully recovers from that kind of abuse. But she's living again. She has friends. She works. She smiles. Simple things that seemed impossible before. The word abuse made Emily flinch. He never hit me, she murmured. Abuse isn't just physical. Emily. Sarah explained. Joining us. The control. The manipulation. The isolation. The gaslighting. Those are all forms of abuse. Gaslighting, Emily repeated. Confused. It's when someone makes you doubt your own perception of reality. When they say things that happened didn't happen. Or that you're imagining things. When they turn your legitimate concerns into paranoia. Emily fell silent, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. Connecting dots. Replaying memories in a new light. He does that. She finally admitted. Her voice almost inaudible. When I say I'm worried about something, he says I'm overreacting. When I remember something he said or did, he swears it never happened. That I'm confusing things. And when someone like your mother tries to warn you, Sarah continued, he convinces you that person has an ulterior motive. That they're trying to separate you out of jealousy or malice. Emily looked at me. Comprehension, slowly dawning in her eyes. He said you were controlling. That you wanted me to fail, so I'd keep depending on you. I just wanted you to be happy. Honey? I replied, feeling my own voice break. And I could see you disappearing before my very eyes. Marcus's phone rang. Interrupting our moment, he answered quickly. And his expression turned grim. He's at Beatrice's house, he reported. Hanging up. One of my contacts on the force just alerted me. Julian managed to trace a call you made from there. Elizabeth. He's furious. Threatening everyone. My blood ran cold. Is Beatrice okay? Yes. She wasn't home. But he's questioning the neighbors. Showing photos of you and Emily. It's only a matter of time until someone mentions seeing you leave together. Emily turned even paler. If that was possible, he's going to find us, she whispered. Panic evident in her voice. No? He's not. Marcus guaranteed. Nobody knows about this farmhouse except people of complete trust. And we're prepared if he tries anything. Prepared how I asked. Alamil. Marcus opened his jacket, revealing a pistol at his waist. I'm an ex-cop. I remember I have a legal permit. And I won't hesitate to use it if he threatens anyone here. The sight of the gun made me uneasy. But also strangely relieved. Julian wasn't the kind of man who would back down from words or empty threats. He was dangerous. And maybe we needed real protection. What do we do now? Benjamin asked. He's clearly willing to do anything to find them. We take the evidence we have and go to the FBI. I decided. First thing tomorrow morning. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this gets. Agreed, Marcus said. I have a friend who can escort us to the field office and make sure we're heard by the right people. I looked at Emily, who was trembling slightly. Are you willing to testify against him, to tell them what he did to you? To our family. She hesitated, the fear still evident in her eyes. But then, slowly, she nodded. Yes. I'm tired of living like this. Tired of being afraid all the time. Those simple words filled me with hope. My daughter was coming back, slowly finding her voice and her strength. Then it settled. Benjamin declared. First thing tomorrow. We go to the field office. Tonight. We rest. Marcus organized a watch schedule. He and Benjamin would take turns ensuring no one approached the house during the night. Sarah prepared a mild sedative for Emily, who was obviously exhausted both physically and emotionally. I walked her to one of the bedrooms where she lay down, without even changing her clothes. I sat beside her on the bed, watching her tired face. Mom, she murmured, already half asleep from the medicine. Yes. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry for everything. For believing him instead of trusting you. I stroked her hair just like I did when she was little. It wasn't your fault. Honey. Men like Julian are experts at manipulation. You had no way of knowing. I should have known. She insisted, her eyes closing. I should have seen the signs. Shh. I whispered. Rest now. We'll have time to talk about all of this tomorrow. She took my hand, squeezing it weakly. Don't leave me. Mom. Please. Never again. I promised, feeling tears in my eyes. I will never leave you alone again. I stayed by her side until she was fast asleep, her breathing becoming deep and regular. Watching her like that, vulnerable and exhausted, I silently renewed my promise. No one would ever hurt my daughter again. No one would make her feel small or insignificant again. Not Julian, not any other man. When I was sure she was deeply asleep, I quietly left the room. In the living room, I found Benjamin, Marcus, and Sarah talking in low voices. How is she? Sarah asked. Sleeping, I replied, feeling suddenly exhausted myself. The medicine worked fast. She needs that rest, Sarah said. Her body and mind have been in a constant state of high alert for a long time. It's exhausting to live under that kind of stress. I sat with them, accepting a cup of coffee Benjamin offered me. What do you think will happen tomorrow? I asked. If all goes well, Julian will be brought in for questioning, Marcus explained. With the evidence we have, the recordings, the forged documents, Emily's and Maria's testimony, there's a good chance we can get an immediate restraining order. And if it doesn't work, I questioned, the fear creeping back in. We go to Plan B, Benjamin replied. I have contacts in other states. We can get you to a safe place to stay until we resolve everything legally. The idea of running, of hiding with Emily in some distant place, it wasn't ideal. But I would do anything to keep her safe. We talked for a while longer, refining the details of the plan for the next day, until exhaustion finally overcame me. Sarah walked me to another room, making sure I rested too. You were very brave today, she said as I lay down. Saving someone from an abusive relationship is one of the most difficult and dangerous things you can do. She's my daughter, I replied simply. I would do anything for her. Sarah smiled gently. Get some rest. Tomorrow is a big day. When she left, I stared at the ceiling, trying to organize my thoughts. So much had happened in the last few days. My life had been turned upside down since that text message I received on Thursday. It felt like a lifetime ago. I fell asleep thinking about Emily, about the smiling girl she was, and the strong woman I knew she could be again. I dreamed of simpler days when it was just the two of us against the world after her father left. Days of laughter in the kitchen. Of movies on the sofa. Of late-night confessions. I woke up with a start to the sound of breaking glass. For a moment, I was disoriented, not knowing where I was. Then the memory came back, in a flash. The farmhouse. The extraction of Emily. The plan for tomorrow. I got up quickly, my heart pounding. The digital clock on the nightstand read 3:17 inches the morning. The house was silent, except for muffled voices coming from the living room. I padded cautiously down the dark hallway. The voices became clearer. One was Marcus's, tense and low. The other one, my blood ran cold. It was Julian. "Where are they?" his voice demanded with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. "I already told you." "I don't know what you're talking about," Marcus replied, his voice controlled but firm. "Don't take me for an idiot," Julian growled. "I know Elizabeth took my wife. I know you're helping them. And I know they're here." I stopped at the corner of the hallway, hidden in the shadows. From my position, I could partially see the living room. Marcus was standing, blocking Julian's path. His hand was near his waist, where I knew he kept his pistol. Julian had his back to me, but his posture was aggressive, intimidating. "You're trespassing on private property," Marcus said, still calm. "I suggest you leave before I call the police." Julian laughed. A cold, cruel sound. "The police? You really think they're going to believe you? I have friends at the station. They know my wife is having psychological problems. That her mother is exploiting it to turn her against me." My heart pounded. Julian had already laid the groundwork, building a narrative that made us look like the villains, typical of an abuser, always one step ahead, always controlling the narrative. "I'm not alone. You know," Julian continued, taking a step toward Marcus. "I've got people outside. If you don't bring me Emily right now, things are going to get very ugly." I saw Marcus's hand move toward his gun. "I'm asking you one more time. Get out of this house. Now." Time seemed to freeze. I knew I was about to witness something horrible. If Julian advanced, Marcus would draw his gun. If Marcus drew his gun, Julian would react. Someone could get hurt. Or worse. It was then I heard a door open behind me. I turned and saw Emily coming out of her room, her eyes wide with fear. "It's him," she whispered. "He found us." Before I could stop her, Emily moved past me and into the living room. "Julian," she called out, her voice trembling. Both men turned toward her. Marcus's face showed alarm. Julian's, a mixture of triumph and restrained rage. "Darling," Julian said, his tone suddenly sweet, though his eyes remained cold. "I was so worried about you. Let's go home now." "Okay." He held out his hand to her, but Emily didn't move. She was standing in the middle of the living room, visibly shaking, but holding her ground. "No," she said, the word coming out as a whisper. Julian's face hardened. "What did you say?" "I said no," Emily repeated, a little louder this time. "I'm not going back with you." I walked into the living room, positioning myself next to Emily. Benjamin and Sarah appeared from other rooms, clearly alerted by the commotion. "You heard my daughter," I said, looking directly at Julian. "She's not going anywhere with you." Julian faced us, his gaze shifting from Emily to me to the others in the room. For a moment, I thought he was going to attack. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "All right," he said, taking a step back. "If that's how you want to play it?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. He dialed a number and spoke briefly. "They're here. All of them." Before any of us could react, bright lights flooded the windows of the living room. Headlights. Several cars. Like I said, Julian continued, his smile widening. I didn't come alone. Marcus ran to the window and peeked through a crack in the curtains. Damn it, he muttered. There are at least 3 cars out there. And that's a cop car. My heart sank. How had Julian found us? How had he gotten the police on his side so quickly? See, Julian said, turning to Emily. Everyone knows your mother is manipulating you. That she kidnapped you to keep you away from me. They're here to take you home where you belong. Emily looked at him. Fear clear in her eyes. But something else. Too. Determination. No, she said again. Her voice firmer this time. I'm not going with you. Ever again. Julian's smile wavered, giving way to a look of naked fury. You don't have a choice. Sweetie, you're my wife. You do what I say. You always have. You always will. At that moment, there was a loud bang on the door. Police, open up. Benjamin shot me a desperate look. What do we do? We have the proof. Sarah reminded him. The recordings. The documents. We're not doing anything wrong here. But will they listen to us? I questioned. Panic starting to rise. If Julian already convinced them we're the villains. Marcus made a quick decision. We open the door. If we try to resist, it'll make everything worse. He went to the door and opened it. 2 uniformed police officers entered, followed by a man in a suit we assumed was a detective. What's going on here? The detective asked. Looking around the room, Julian immediately took on the role of the worried husband, Detective Miller. As I explained, my wife disappeared yesterday. Her mother convinced her to run away. I'm just trying to bring her home. The detective looked at Emily. Mom, is this true? Are you here of your own free will? Before Emily could answer, Julian Coutin. She's not well. Detective. She has a history of emotional problems. She's confused. Rage swelled inside me. My daughter has no problems. I exclaimed. It's that man who has been manipulating and psychologically abusing her for years. The detective looked at me skeptically. Mom, we have an official report that you may have kidnapped your own daughter. That's absurd. Benjamin protested. We have proof of abuse. Of manipulation. Forged documents. Testimonies. Are you going to believe them? Julian laughed. Turning to the detective. They're her friends. Obviously. They're going to say whatever to cover for her. The room was tense with everyone talking at once. The police officers looked confused, glancing from one group to the other, clearly unsure who to believe. It was then that Emily stepped forward. I want to file a report, she said. Her voice surprisingly clear and firm. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. A report for what? Ma'am, the detective asked. Psychological and emotional abuse. Emily answered. Document forgery. Attempted fraud. Maybe even attempted murder. Julian paled. You're delusional. Hey, he said. No one is going to believe that. I have proof. Emily continued. Ignoring him, she turned to Sarah, who quickly handed her her purse. From inside, Emily pulled out the recorder Maria had given me. Here are recordings of my husband discussing plans to forge my mother's signature to take control of her properties. There are also recordings of him talking about an accident my mother would suffer during a dinner that was never planned to happen. The detective took the recorder, looking at it with interest. This is serious. Mom? Are you sure about what you're saying? Absolutely, Emily replied. Then, slowly, she unbuttoned the sleeve of her blouse and rolled it up, revealing bruises on her arms. Finger marks clearly visible against her pale skin. And this, she said, is what happens when I disagree with him. When I don't eat exactly what he tells me to. When I talk to someone without his permission. I stared at my daughter's arms, feeling nauseous. How did I not realize? How did I not see the physical signs of abuse? But of course, Julian was too smart to leave marks where people could see. And he had kept us apart for so long. The detective looked at Julian, his expression now very serious. Sir, I think we need to talk down at the station. This is ridiculous. Julian exploded, his control finally shattering. She's lying. All of them are. He took a step toward Emily, his face contorted with rage. But the officers quickly intercepted him, grabbing him by the arms. I think it's best you come with us now. Sir, one of the officers said. You don't understand. Julian continued to struggle. She's mine. She can't leave me. I did everything for her. As the police dragged him outside, Julian kept screaming threats and insults. Emily stood watching, a single tear rolling down her face. When the door finally closed, leaving the room in a heavy silence, Emily turned to me, without a word. She fell into my arms, sobbing like a child. It's over, I whispered, stroking her hair. It's over. Honey, you're safe now. But I knew it wasn't over. It was just the beginning of a long journey. Julian would likely be released on bail. There would be investigations, depositions, maybe a trial, and the road to Emily's recovery would be long and difficult. But for the first time in over a year, I felt hope. My daughter had found her voice, her courage. She had taken the first step out of that cycle of abuse. And I would be by her side every step of the way. The months that followed were difficult. As we expected, Julian was released on bail as we predicted, but with a restraining order that forbade him from coming near Emily or me. He violated that order 3 times in the first few weeks, which resulted in his pre-trial detention while the case was investigated. Emily and I moved to a small apartment in another city, Portland, Oregon, where no one knew us. Starting over wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Every day, I saw small signs that my daughter was returning to the person she was before Julian entered our lives. The first few weeks were the hardest. Emily alternated between moments of clarity and strength, and periods of deep doubt where she would even question if she had done the right thing by leaving Julian. What if he's right? She murmured one night, sitting on the balcony of our new apartment, looking at the stars. What if I can't live without him? You lived without him for 25 years before you met him, I replied gently. And you were an incredible, independent person, full of dreams and plans. I don't remember that person anymore, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. I remember, I said, holding her hand. And I'm going to help you find her again. Emily started therapy with Sarah, who offered to see her for free until we were financially settled. In the sessions, she slowly unearthed the layers of manipulation and abuse Julian had built around her. With each revelation, my heart broke a little more. How he controlled what she ate, insisting she was fat when she was actually dangerously thin. How he checked her phone daily, deleting messages from friends and family, sometimes replying as her to push people away. How he gradually convinced her that I was toxic, controlling, and jealous of their happiness. I believed him. She told me one day, crying in my arms. I believed him when he said you were trying to separate us because you were jealous. How could I have been so blind? Manipulators are experts at distorting reality, I explained, repeating what Sarah had taught us. They find small insecurities and exploit them, turning them into walls that separate you from the people who love you. Benjamin handled the legal process. The investigation revealed much more than we expected. Julian hadn't just forged signatures on documents. He had created an elaborate scheme to transfer not only Emily's properties and stocks, but also mine, to offshore accounts. There was evidence of other financial crimes involving other partners he had manipulated over the years. He's a serial predator, Benjamin explained, showing us the reports. You weren't the first victims, but I hope you'll be the last. When the case finally went to trial, 6 months after that night at the farmhouse, Emily was strong enough to testify. I watched her on the stand, telling her story with a clarity and firmness that brought tears to my eyes. She was no longer the fragile, scared woman we had rescued from that house. Julian was convicted on multiple charges, including fraud, forgery, psychological abuse, and attempted grand larceny. The sentence: 15 years with no chance of parole for the first 8. When we walked out of the courthouse that day, Emily took a deep breath, looking up at the blue sky above us. It's strange, she said. I still love him in some twisted way. It's like a part of me still wants to believe that everything we lived was real, that he really cared. What you felt for him was real, I replied. The problem is that what he felt for you wasn't love. It was possession. And there's a huge difference between the two. She nodded slowly. I'm going to need time to unlearn everything he taught me, to trust others and myself again. You have all the time in the world, honey. And you're not on this journey alone. 5 years have passed since that night at the farmhouse. 5 years of healing, of rebuilding, of rediscovery. Emily finished her master's degree and now works at a support center for victims of domestic violence in New Orleans. I'm still running the bookstore, which has become not just a business, but a space for community and awareness. Julian is serving his sentence with no right to contact us. We occasionally get updates on him through Benjamin, who keeps an eye on the case. Apparently, he's found a new victim through correspondence. A woman who believes she's communicating with a wrongfully convicted businessman. The authorities have been alerted, and the communication is being monitored. Some scars never fully disappear. There are moments when Emily flinches at a sudden noise, or when her gaze turns distant as something reminds her of those years. There are nights when I still have nightmares about what could have happened if we hadn't acted in time. But there are also moments of pure joy, of freedom, of peace. Like today on a Sunday afternoon as we host friends for a barbecue in the backyard of the small townhouse we bought together. Emily is smiling, chatting animatedly with a group, her confidence restored, her inner beauty visible once again for all to see. Maria is here too. She left her job at Julian's house, which was sold to pay indemnities, and now works with us at the bookstore. She and Emily developed a strong friendship, bonded by their shared experience. Benjamin, Marcus, and Sarah became part of our chosen family. We get together regularly, not just to remember the past, but to celebrate the present and plan the future. As I watch this scene, my daughter, happy, surrounded by people who truly care about her, I feel a deep gratitude, not just for having survived, but for having learned to live again. Truly live. Emily sees me watching and she smiles. That smile that lights up her eyes and warms my heart. She excuses herself from her friends and comes over to me, sitting beside me on the garden bench. What are you thinking about? She asks, resting her head on my shoulder, just like she did when she was a little girl. About how strange life is, I respond. About how sometimes we have to go through hell to find our way back home. She nods, understanding perfectly. You know what I learned from all this, she says after a moment of silence. What? Honey, that real love doesn't imprison. It doesn't control. It doesn't diminish. Real love liberates. It strengthens. It makes you grow. She squeezes my hand. Like your love for me. Silent tears roll down my face. 5 years ago, I was desperate, sitting in my car, watching my daughter through a window, trying to understand how we had gotten to that point. Today, she is here by my side, free from the invisible chains that held her, and I am here witnessing the miracle of her recovery, knowing that no matter how dark the night, There is always a chance to start over when the dawn comes. Mom, Emily says, interrupting my thoughts. Yes. Thank you for never giving up on me. I kiss her forehead gently. That's what moms do. Honey, they never give up. And as the sun begins to set on the horizon, casting golden hues over our small backyard and the people we love, I know that we are finally home. Not in a physical place, but in that safe space we've created for each other, where love is genuine, respect is mutual, and freedom is valued above all else. Some stories don't have happy endings. Ours almost became one of them, but thanks to courage, persistance, and true love, the kind that respects, that strengthens, that liberates, we managed to rewrite our destiny. And that's the message we share with all the Emilys and Elizabeths we meet. It's never too late to rewrite your story. It's never too late to escape the shadows and walk toward the light. It's never too late to come back home. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part left your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't post here.